The ultimatum. The great chamber of the Galactic Assembly fell silent as Ambassador Ileana Chen took her position at the central podium. 500 representatives from across the galaxy shifted nervously in their seats, their various appendages, tentacles, and eye stalks all fixed on the solitary human. The assembly hall was a marvel of architecture, a vast dome of transparent alloy that revealed the star-studded blackness of space beyond. It was designed to remind all present of their shared cosmic origins. Ileana stood perfectly still, her posture straight and unwavering. At 45, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had navigated the treacherous waters of interstellar diplomacy for 2 decades. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and her ceremonial blue uniform bore only the small insignia of Earth, a stylized planet with a single moon. Esteemed members of the Assembly, she began, her voice clear and steady. I stand before you today as the voice of Earth and her 17 colonies. For 30 years, humanity has participated in this grand experiment of galactic cooperation. We have traded, we have shared knowledge, and we have respected the boundaries established by this body. She paused, her eyes scanning the chamber. Today, that changes. As of 800 Universal Standard Time, the United Earth Government has declared a state of war against the Vexkar Dominion. The chamber erupted. Delegates rose from their seats, some shouting in their native languages while universal translators struggled to keep up. Others flashed warning colors across their skin or released pheromones of alarm. The Vexkar representative, a towering insectoid with iridescent carapace, clicked his mandibles loudly, the universal translation rendered as mocking laughter. High Arbiter Jolak, the ancient gas-based entity who served as the Assembly's chief moderator, expanded to twice his normal size, the equivalent of calling for order. As the commotion subsided, his voice resonated through the chamber. Ambassador Chen, the Assembly has maintained peace among the stellar nations for 700 cycles. War has been eliminated as an instrument of policy. This declaration is unprecedented. Unprecedented. Ileana's voice hardened. 3 days ago, the Vexkar fleet bombarded our research outpost on Kepler 442 bits. 2,719 civilians, scientists, engineers, and their families were killed. Children were killed. The outpost violated territorial agreements, clicked the Vexkar representative, Hive Commander Vrektar. That system falls within the expansion zone granted to the Dominion by this very Assembly. An expansion zone that was allocated only after your faction bribed 3 representatives. Ileana countered, a fact that our intelligence services have thoroughly documented and submitted to the Assembly Ethics Committee, whose investigation has been mysteriously stalled for the past 18 months. That caused another stir. Ileana nodded to her assistant, Marcus Kim, who activated his data tablet. Above the chamber, a holographic display materialized, showing images that made several delegates physically recoil, the ruined habitation domes of the outpost, bodies preserved by the thin atmosphere, a child's educational device half buried in ash. This was not a military target. Ileana continued. This was a civilian research station studying terraforming methods. The Vexkar gave no warning. They attacked without provocation, without declaration, and without mercy. Hive Commander Vrektar's multifaceted eyes gleamed. If humans wish to confront the Dominion, they will be crushed. Our battle fleets outnumber Earth's pitiful navy 100 to 1. This declaration is nothing but the final gasp of a species facing extinction. Ileana smiled, a slight curve of the lips that didn't reach her eyes. We understand the disparity in our forces, Commander. That's why we're not fighting the conventional war. She nodded to Marcus again, and the holographic display changed to show a small fleet of oddly shaped vessels. Rather than the sleek designs favored by most spacefaring races, these ships were angular, almost insect-like, with protruding structures that defied common aerospace engineering principles. This is the Swarm, Ileana explained. 36 specialized combat vessels, unlike anything your military analysts have previously cataloged. They are currently en route to the Vexcar home system of Arcturus Aya. The Vexcar representative rose to his full height, his voice a sharp series of clicks. This is a bluff. The Arcturus system is protected by 11 defensive rings and the largest armada in the galaxy. Yes, Ileana nodded. We're counting on it. High Arbiter Jolak expanded again, his ethereal form swirling with concern. Ambassador Chen, I implore you to reconsider. The Vexcar Dominion has existed for millennia. Your species has been interstellar for barely a century. This can only end in catastrophe. Perhaps, Ileana conceded, but there's something you should understand about humans. Throughout our history, we have been underestimated. On Earth, our earliest societies were built by slaves who overthrew empires. Our greatest scientific revolutions came from outcasts and rebels. Our most decisive military victories were achieved by forces that, by all logical analysis, should have been defeated. She gestured to the holographic display, which changed again to show the internal schematics of the unusual ships. Humanity has spent 30 years pretending to be just another member of the galactic community. We built trading vessels and passenger liners. We established diplomatic missions and cultural exchanges. All the while, we studied, we learned, we prepared. Because history has taught us that peace is fragile and that predators eventually tire of cooperation. The chamber was deadly quiet now. Even the Vexcar representative had fallen silent. What you're seeing is not our entire military capability. It's a demonstration. The swarm carries a new type of weapon we call phase disruptors. They don't destroy matter. They alter its fundamental quantum state. No shields can block them because they don't travel through normal space. No armor can resist them because they change the atomic binding forces within the material itself. Ileana's voice remained calm, almost conversational, as she continued. In approximately 48 hours, the swarm will reach the Arcturus system. They will deploy phase disruptors against the Vexcar command ships. Not the entire fleet, just the command vessels. The weapons will not harm any living beings. They will, however, render all navigation, weapons, and life support systems permanently inoperable. Impossible, Vrektar hissed. No such technology exists. 3 months ago, your scientists would have agreed with you. Ileana replied. That's why we kept it secret. Humanity has always excelled at making the impossible possible when our survival is threatened. She turned to address the wider assembly now. I'm not here to ask for permission or assistance. I'm here to issue a warning. Stay out of this conflict. Any nation that aids the Vexcar Dominion will be considered an enemy of Earth. Any nation that attempts to interfere with our operations will face similar consequences. The High Arbiter's form pulsed with distress. Ambassador, this defies all protocols. The Assembly must convene an emergency session to. With respect, Arbiter, Ileana interrupted. The time for debate ended when the Vexcar murdered our people. This body had 30 years to create a truly just system of interstellar governance. Instead, it created a playground for the powerful to exploit the weak. Humanity will no longer participate in the charade. She reached into her pocket and withdrew a small metal object, which she placed on the podium, Earth's Galactic Assembly membership medallion. Earth hereby suspends its participation in the Galactic Assembly until such time as genuine reforms are implemented. We will defend our sovereignty by whatever means necessary. As Ileana turned to leave, Vrektar's voice cut through the stunned silence. Your species has just signed its death warrant, human. Ileana paused and looked back over her shoulder. We'll see, she said simply. Then, with Marcus following closely behind, she walked out of the assembly chamber, leaving 500 representatives facing a future suddenly filled with uncertainty. Behind her, the galaxy's balance of power had just been irrevocably altered. The demonstration. Admiral Kenzo Nakamura stood on the bridge of the EFS as Indomitable, the flagship of humanity's unconventional fleet. Through the main viewport, he watched as the swirling blue-green gases of hyperspace gave way to normal space, and the imposing sight of the Vex-Car home system. Arcturus Aida dominated the center of the view screen, a massive gas giant surrounded by 11 concentric rings of defensive platforms, automated weapon systems, and patrol vessels. The Vex-Car home colony existed on 7 large artificial moons orbiting the planet, each a marvel of engineering that housed billions of the insectoid species. And between the Indomitable and those defenses waited the Vex-Car Grand Armada, over 2,000 warships arranged in their traditional crescent formation. "They were expecting us," observed Captain Lin Wei, Nakamura's second-in-command. The young officer's eyes were fixed on the tactical display, which showed the overwhelming Vex-Car forces highlighted in red. "Of course they were," Nakamura replied calmly. Ambassador Chen made sure of that. He was a veteran of Earth's earlier conflicts with the Proxima Centauri Concordat, the brief but brutal war that had taught humanity how dangerous the galaxy could be. At 62, his face was weathered, but his eyes retained a sharp intelligence that had propelled him to the highest military rank in the United Earth Forces. "Status of the swarm?" he asked. "All 36 vessels reporting ready." "Admiral," responded Commander Fatima Dar from the tactical station. "Phase disruptors are charged and targeting systems are acquiring primary objectives." Nakamura nodded. "Open a channel to the Vex-Car flagship." "Channel open, sir." "This is Admiral Kenzo Nakamura of the Earth Fleet ship Indomitable to Vex-Car Command. In accordance with United Earth Government directives, we are here to neutralize your military capability in response to your unprovoked attack on our Kepler outpost. You have 30 minutes to evacuate all personnel from your command vessels." The response was immediate. A visual transmission showing Vex-Car Fleet Lord Kivrax, his armored carapace gleaming under the lights of his command center. "Admiral Nakamura," the translation came through. The Vex-Car's clicking speech rendered in flat, emotionless standard. "Your show of force is impressive for such a young species. 37 ships against our 2,000. Your ambassador claimed you were not suicidal, yet here you are." "We're not here to destroy your civilization, Fleet Lord," Nakamura replied. "Only to ensure you understand that attacking humans has consequences." "Noble sentiments," Kivrax clicked, "but misguided. The Vex-Car have crushed 100 species more advanced than yours. Your demonstration will end with your destruction, and then we will move against your homeworld." Nakamura's expression remained unchanged. "I'm transmitting coordinates of the vessels we intend to target. I strongly advise you to evacuate them." The Vex-Car commander's mandibles flexed in what humans had learned was their equivalent of laughter. "Your concern is noted, Admiral, but unnecessary. Our defense grid is activating as we speak. Your ships will not survive the next 10 minutes. As if on cue, the tactical display lit up as the Vex-Car defensive rings began powering their weapons. Hundreds of energy signatures flared to life. "They're not evacuating," Captain Lin noted. Nakamura sighed. "I didn't expect them to." Begin deployment sequence. Across the small human fleet, specialized compartments opened, releasing thousands of objects barely larger than a human fist. To the Vex-Car sensors, they would register as debris or perhaps primitive missiles, certainly nothing that could penetrate their advanced shields. "Microdrones deployed," Commander Dar reported. "Quantum entanglement network establishing. Network stable. Phase disruptor targeting matrix online." On the view screen, the Vex-Car fleet began to move, spreading out to envelop the tiny human force. Their confidence was evident in their leisurely pace. They saw no need to rush against such an outmatched opponent. "Admiral," Communication Officer Teresa Santos called out, "we're receiving transmissions from 17 different Galactic Assembly members. They're requesting to observe the encounter." Nakamura raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. They want to witness our destruction, or they're curious about our technology." "Perhaps both, sir," Lin suggested. "Grant them access to our exterior visual feeds only," Nakamura ordered. They can watch, but they'll learn nothing of our systems. The Vex-Kar fleet continued its advance, and the first salvos of energy weapons lanced out from their forward ships. The shots passed harmlessly through empty space. The human vessels had already shifted positions in a complex, seemingly random pattern that the Vex-Kar targeting computers couldn't predict. Phase disruptors at full charge, Dar announced. Target acquisition complete. Nakamura straightened his uniform and gave a single nod. Execute. There was no visible beam, no dramatic explosion, no thundering sound, just a slight ripple in the fabric of space-time itself as the phase disruptors activated. The effect, however, was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the Vex-Kar fleet, 60 command ships suddenly went dark. Their lights flickered and died, their engines ceased functioning, and their weapon systems fell silent. They drifted, powerless and helpless, in the void. Phase disruption successful, Dar reported, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from her voice. All targeted vessels have been neutralized. On the view screen, the Vex-Kar fleet lord's image showed his first sign of genuine emotion. His antennae were vibrating rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among his kind. "What have you done?" he demanded, his mandibles clicking frantically. "Exactly what we promised," Nakamura replied calmly. "We've disabled your command ships. Your crews are unharmed, but their vessels will never function again. The atomic structure of all electronic components has been permanently altered." The remaining Vex-Kar ships had halted their advance, their commanders suddenly uncertain in the face of a weapon they couldn't comprehend. "This is impossible," Kivrax insisted. "No weapon can penetrate our shields without being detected." "Your shields operate in normal space-time," Nakamura explained. "Our phase disruptors don't. This is just the beginning of what we can do, Fleet Lord. The next demonstration will target your defensive platforms." As if to emphasize his point, the human fleet shifted again, this time forming a perfect sphere around the Indomitable. The micro-drones repositioned, creating an intricate web that surrounded the Vex-Kar defensive rings. "You have 1 hour to open diplomatic channels with Earth," Nakamura continued. "In that time, we expect a formal apology for the attack on our outpost, reparations for the families of the deceased, and the immediate withdrawal of all Vex-Kar claims to the Kepler system." For several long moments, the Vex-Kar commander was silent, his alien mind clearly struggling to process the new reality. Finally, he spoke. "And if we refuse? Then we will disable every ship in your armada, every defensive platform around your homeworld, and every military installation on your colony moons," Nakamura said matter-of-factly. "Your civilization will be defenseless. And then we will leave." "Leave?" Kivrax seemed confused. "Yes. As Ambassador Chen explained to your representative, we're not interested in conquest or genocide. We want only to exist in peace, to explore, to learn. But we will not be victims." Nakamura leaned forward, his voice taking on an edge of steel. "Remember this moment, Fleet Lord. Remember that humans showed mercy when you showed none. Remember that we could have destroyed you, but chose not to. And remember that if you ever threaten our people again, we will not be so restrained." The bridge fell silent as the transmission ended. For several minutes, no one spoke as the Vex-Kar fleet remained motionless, their commanders undoubtedly engaged in frantic communication. "Do you think they'll comply, Admiral?" Lin asked quietly. Nakamura's gaze remained fixed on the view screen. "They're conquerors, Captain. They understand only strength and dominance. Today, they've learned that they are not the strongest force in the galaxy. It's a painful lesson, but a necessary one." 59 minutes later, the Vex-Kar opened diplomatic channels with Earth. 2 days after that, representatives from 28 stellar nations approached Earth with requests for alliance negotiations. 1 week later, Ambassador Ileana Chen returned to the Galactic Assembly, not as a supplicant, but as the voice of a power that had changed the galaxy's balance overnight. As she took her place at the speaker's podium, she caught the eyes of the High Arbiter. The ancient being's gaseous form pulsed once in acknowledgement. "Esteemed members of the assembly," Eliana began, her voice carrying throughout the chamber. "Humanity comes before you today not to rejoin your ranks, but to propose a new beginning. A true coalition of equals, where justice is not merely discussed, but enforced. Where the strong cannot prey upon the weak without consequence." She paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. "The question before you is simple. Will you join us in creating a better galaxy, or will you cling to a failing system that rewards only power and wealth? The choice is yours. But know this: humanity will chart its own course either way. We invite you to journey with us, but we will not wait for those who cannot change." Throughout the chamber, representatives leaned forward in their seats, appendages and tentacles, and eye stalks, all focused intently on the human diplomat. The galaxy would never be the same again.